how would you organize your training in, like, theoretically speaking, because you haven't done a HYROX yet, but how would you organize your training in order to optimize your performance in that setting? Like, do you have to be getting to that level in your training sessions? Now what I'm observing is the training sessions that these HYROX competitors are doing are very similar in intensity to the actual event, which for me is incredibly unusual
and dangerous.
It's strange.
There's such a high risk for injury. I need to do more research on if it's like a coaching thing, or if it's a culture thing, or what actually is the idea of that. When you come for a HYROX workout, regardless if there's a warm-up or whatever, the workout sim that they call is going to be done at RP 8 to 10. You're going to be redlining at least 80% of the time.
I would say theoretically take like 2 or 3 of the movements, like wall ball, lunge, and burpee broad jump, put that on one day, and then on the other day you do like sled push, sled pull. But anyway, you split the exercises. You don't ever do them all together. Kind of like do a few together. You're trying to improve at those specific parts of the thing, and you never really do them all together until the actual race day. So you obviously prepared for this episode a little bit, and you said that you were surprised with your insights, at least around your own personal position around HYROX. You are infamous for your anti-HYROX stance, but I think maybe having researched things a little bit more, you've come a bit more to the middle. I don't know. Can you shed light a bit on why your stance was the way it was, and what influenced it to become what it is now?
It's funny, when I was leaving the gym, they were all laughing at me, saying that I'm just going to come here and I'm just going to bash HYROX. Why do you hate HYROX? Gideon hates HYROX. Fuck HYROX.
That's funny.
No, but like, I think I've always had this, I've always started the conversation around HYROX around the fact, kind of what we do at Horizen, where we're very community driven, right? Where HYROX is the same. It's like about creating a community of people that want to, do this challenge, and you kind of train together. There's partner events and stuff, which I've always liked about HYROX. But in the beginning, I've never enjoyed the idea, similar with the CrossFitters, of doing the multitude of movements in like a race format. So like, what HYROX, you have the run, 1 kilometer run, and then you go into your, your rowing, and then whack into 1 kilometer run, and then your ski erg. So it's a kind of a sense of you want to be a jack of all trades but a master of none kind of thing. And that never like really resonated with me. I've always had major respect for competitions that focus solely on a specific train principle. So like powerlifting, Olympic lifting, like marathon running or ultra marathon running, or something that you train specifically for to complete to the best. Where kind of HYROX is you trying to do everything okay to complete. You're not like very good at rowing or very good at ski erg, or you're not particularly strong, but you have a fairly good athletic base, good cardiovascular base, not overly strong. So that's kind of where originally I sat with the idea of like, I don't like the idea of that. But the more and more I did like, my research and spoke to people, and I had friends that have like asked me, we should just sign up for a HYROX event. It would be fun to do. I was like, I'm taking this way too seriously. It's like, I'm taking it way too seriously. At the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. And ultimately, if it's getting people out, going to the gym on a weekly basis, doing their HYROX simmed workouts, getting exercise in, I mean, that's great, right? If we can bring a whole community that never did exercise to doing exercise, I'm sure we'll get into it, the whole, barrier to entry is much lower than what CrossFit would be. Obviously, it still has a bunch of risks involved that we can chat about later. But yeah, that's kind of how I've shifted. I'm not like so stuck up on the competing side of things, and focusing more around like the community and bringing people together, and like just around exercise, kind of like what we do with strength training.
Yes.
So I've taken it with that lens.
You bring up a very interesting point when you talk about this barrier to entry thing and getting people into exercise, because that was a key part of the findings that Claude surfaced for me, which was, but I did specifically ask it to go in that direction. But of the people that are participating, how many of them are new to exercise and wouldn't have exercised, versus how many of them are relatively seasoned athletes getting into something new? Because the difference there is, are you creating more depth for the existing pool of exercise people, or are you broadening the base of people that exercise? Because those are two very different outcomes. Like, giving more depth is cool, but like, is it really that impactful for the exercise community? I don't know, maybe, because like ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get more people into the gym. We're trying to get more people to go and walk every day and eat good food. And I don't think we're trying to just like take people who are already consistently active and
give them something new to do.
something new.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that as particularly impactful. So that the jury's still out on that, and it's tricky. Like, it was sort of inconclusive, the results that I found, and you've got to take it with a grain of salt because of the fact that it was an AI thing and it could have been hallucinating. But it seems to be that it is mainly just deepening the experience of existing exercise people. Because if also you look anecdotally at the people you know who have done HYROX, how many of them are new to exercise?
Yeah,
None.
very few. I think the major target is the running community, though.
True.
That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that I've noticed in all the research, and that's the biggest thing that stands out, sheds the most light. It's like someone that, runs 2 to 3 times a week with a running club, and they hear from a friend that they're doing HYROX at X gym that's now affiliated with HYROX. They should come do a session. They come for a session. There's a running element involved, which they're very familiar with, and there's a HYROX simmed workout that has rowing, which is very, like the barrier to entry to learning how to row and use a ski erg and do some war balls and stuff isn't very high, right? And the biggest thing that I've also experienced in this, chatting to friends and seeing the community, is like when I did CrossFit all the years ago, the in order to get into a competitive CrossFit state, it took a lot of training. Like, you would have to be strong in multiple like weightlifting disciplines, as well as gymnastics, which is a whole nother ballpark, as well as your cardiovascular endurance. So like that's your ski erg, your running, your row erg, your salt bike, all of that stuff. On top of that, where HYROX strips all of those harder things to get into, so that you can dive straight into doing a HYROX event, later on in that year if you joined early in the year. So to get you from just running on the road into the gym, taking you through a HYROX simmed workout, to competing with your friend at like a HYROX event is far easier to get into than wanting to compete in a CrossFit event.
And I think from that perspective, it is quite impactful, because if it is going the way that you're describing it, it's taking runners who typically maybe wouldn't strength train, giving them a little dose of resistance training, not strength training, because it's fucking not strength training. Let us make that explicitly clear. It's a threshold workout with weight. But that kind of shows them, cool, this is a lunging movement. This is a squat pattern with the throwing of the ball. This is the pushing of the sled. Okay, interesting. How can I get better at that? Maybe let me chat to some other dude who does well. Oh, Gideon doesn't do HYROX, everyone. Gideon's good at HYROX, and he is squatting twice a week. Let me maybe implement that. And then you kind of have these people funneling more into the strength element, and they otherwise wouldn't have, because why would they do that? Because they were only running. So from that perspective, I think it is actually quite useful. Like, that is positive.
I didn't want to dive too deep into, but we might as well if we're here, is that the training stimulus from someone that goes from running 2 to 3 times a week to like getting straight into HYROX, your training stimulus goes up so much. That's where a lot of the problems start to creep in. That's why it gets quite a bad rep from the training side, not even the event side. So like the training sims that they talk about that like mimics the the overall event that's always the same. That's where the training load goes up so much. That's where the injuries creep in. That's where I hear a lot of stories about people getting injured or picking up niggles, and then they can't even go back to their regular running because of that.
I think you need to be really smart about how you incorporate it.
100%.
If you're someone who's running regularly, I would experiment with, let's say you're doing 3 runs a week and one of them is a threshold type workout or a more quality, like harder workout run. I would remove that entirely and let the HYROX workout come in. I wouldn't add the HYROX on top. I would take one, because it's also very similar in terms of the system that you're stimulating. Like if you're doing a threshold run for 50 minutes, that's a hard workout. You're probably averaging like, I don't know, 165, 170 heart rate, very high output. That's the same as a HYROX workout. But like if you're just chucking the HYROX on top of that, plus your 2 easy runs,
plus new movements,
it's
movement patterns you don't know.
Yeah, that's a big risk factor.
Yeah, that's a lot of the lot of insight I get out of people that I've spoken to about that have joined HYROX from a running pool kind of setup. It's different when you like coming from an original strength training background or a CrossFit background, and like what you said originally, that it's just creating more depth. But if you have someone that's just the runner coming into a resistance based like workout simulator, it's gonna put a lot of extra strain on the body.
What do you think the value is of workouts at that level of intensity? It's a pretty popular thing in the HYROX community. I mean, Andy at the gym even speaks about having an acid bath where you're literally like, you're redlining it for an hour, and that's like a kind of workout that the CrossFit people like. And from a sort of energy systems and like stimulus point of view, you get to a very similar place doing HYROX. From your perspective as a strength and conditioning specialist with a sports science background, where does that kind of workout actually fit in, if at all?
So I guess that's like that would almost also fit into like your running threshold tests. It's like the maximum effort you can do something at, right? So like if you trying to in kind of improve your 5K time, you can talk more about this, but you set like different kilometers at different paces, where this is kind of similar. You like a HYROX sim, you'll take, let's say, the wall balls, and you'll pair them with the ski erg. Let's say they come after each other, and you just have that with maybe like a 250-meter run in between that. What it's doing is it's kind of conditioning the body to move between multiple different movements, and how your body can recover and where it learns to recover in between that. Because obviously you can't go at 100% throughout the entire workout. There needs to be quote unquote rest involved, even though you're not at rest. So it's basically taking your body through a mini simulated workout that will allow for like your threshold to increase. So in that set, it's like how long can you hold on for, kind of thing.
Yes.
And it's mainly, to answer your question, it's mainly an aerobic threshold. There is obviously anaerobic involved, because you have resistance, but it's mainly working on your aerobic threshold.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like if I can do 30 wall balls, if I have to do 100 wall balls, which is what it's in the event, you train the body to withstand 30 wall balls at a time, and then taking the rest of 5 to 10 seconds, and then the next simulated workout you try and do 40 with the 5 to 10 second breaks. So it's just working on that overall threshold.
Yeah, it talks about, and you guys need to go and check if this is actually a real article, because like I said, I used AI to do this research. Brunt et al. 2025, Frontiers in Physiology, tracked 11 recreational athletes through a simulated HYROX race. The race signature, almost all of it 90% of max heart rate.
Yeah.
Peak lactate, 8.5 millimoles per, I think it's liter. 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 RPE on wall balls. being at that level for 90% of a workout is horrific.
That's it. And that's what these simulations are. It's quite literally a simulation, and it's, to put it as bluntly and as plainly as possible, it's literally how long you can hold on for before everything gives out. It's training your body like past, we talk about past the RPE 10, in like strength training, like, when you doing a bench press and you're going for 3 reps, and like on the second rep, it feels like 2 years to get to the third rep.
Yes.
We call that like RP 11, like as a joke. But like that is quite literally what they try to do in the simulation. Is that, as I said, like, if you want to row the 1,000 meters, you try and prepare your body to go at a 145 to 150 per 500 meter pace. Like you train it to.
And physiologically, do you think there's any value to that kind of workout, or do you view it similarly to, for instance, how I view any run that is longer than 10 kilometers, which is, it's a fun thing to do, and you do it because you can, not because it's necessarily beneficial?
100%. That's exactly where I stand on that. It's purely, I can complete that. Let's just use the HYROX as example. Is that I can complete the full event in, I don't know what exactly a good time is, an hour and 30 minutes. And that's considered like a leaderboard finish.
Yes.
Let's say, like, you could have the same thing for half marathon or whatever. It's really cool that you can do it, but it's just a fun thing to do. It's not really going to add any physiological benefits, right?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Claire and I actually chatted about this briefly a few days ago, talking about the difference between health and performance, and how I always used to conflate the two, and I thought professional athletes are the healthiest people on earth. It's like, no, it's not true.
They've conditioned their body to work in a certain way that isn't natural. That's why they compete at the highest level, right? It's like, if someone that plays soccer recreationally, they're going to be doing it for fun, whereas as a professional, you'll push your body in the gym, on the field, to the absolute max, just on tinkering on that level of getting like injured.
Yes.
You maxing out the whole time, where if you're doing something recreationally, like even you're running, you're not trying to redline it the whole time. Obviously there's programmed and periodization, all that, but ultimately you're trying to reach the best version of yourself in that sport.
And how would you organize your training, in, like, theoretically speaking, because you haven't done a HYROX yet, or I don't know if you ever will, but how would you organize your training in order to optimize your performance in that setting? Like, do you have to be getting to that level in your training sessions? Because like now what I'm observing is the training sessions that these HYROX competitors are doing are very similar in intensity to the actual event, which for me is incredibly unusual. I've not
And dangerous.
It's strange.
This is what I was talking about, the injury.
It's a weird approach to training.
This is it. This is why I go back to my point about there's such a high risk for injury, because I need to do more research on if it's like a coaching thing, or if it's a culture thing, or what actually is. But it's the idea of that when you come for a HYROX workout, regardless if there's a warm up or whatever, it's the workout sim that they call for the workout is going to be done at RP 8 to 10. You're going to be redlining at least 80% of the time. It isn't like broken down into how we would structure a strength workout.
Yes.
Where you optimize for rest so you can perform in the set to see like growth.
You basically want to compartmentalize the activity into its different components, and then perform in your practice at a high level in certain components. And
but now are we talking about health or performance? Because now it's like it bridges the gap.
Okay, now I'm talking about performance.
Yeah.
But
So
even so, I think that training the way that I'm about to explain is much healthier than doing a sim or two a week, which is you take like, I would say theoretically, take like 2 or 3 of the movements, like wall ball, lunge, and burpee broad jump. You put that on one day, and you do those in some sort of format together. And then on the other day, you do like sled push, sled pull, and I don't know. I think there are 8 things in total. Your farmer's carry and
lunging, burpee, broad jumps.
what was, maybe I need to add another couple. But anyway, you split the exercises. You don't ever do them all together. You
Yeah.
kind of like do a few together in like a slightly lower intensity, but you're trying to improve at those specific parts of the thing, and you never really do them all together until the actual race day.
That is what they do train like that. They do. They
Okay.
don't do the entire event in like one workout. It's not like that. They do. They do break it up like that. But the point was that it's done at a maximal effort every time. Even if it's just like we're gonna do ski erg with row erg and wall balls and burpee broad jumps. It's going to be, regardless of what, if it's an EMOM or if it's an AMRAP or if it's whatever, it's going to be done at like a maximal effort.
What if you had to say, what if you had to split it into blocks? Like, what if you had to have like your first block? Let's say you do like an 8-week HYROX build or something. The first block, you're focusing on like on 4 of the movements or something. And you do like, I wonder if you could apply like a strength training methodology to that, because you're doing 100 wall balls in the comp, right?
I would hope that some coaches and some coaching in HYROX have this approach. I don't believe that this doesn't exist.
Yeah, let's say
This idea.
let's say you've got 200 wall balls for your session instead
Yes.
of 100 in the competition.
Yeah.
But you're doing it over like, I don't know, you're spacing it out over 90 minutes, and you're doing it every 2 minutes. You're doing like 10 wall balls or something. I don't know if the math checks out. It probably doesn't. But just like a slightly more toned down version where you're still stimulating those movement patterns and improving them, but in a way that isn't taking you to like 190 heart rate the whole time. I don't know if that would be useful, or if that would be effective for HYROX.
My thing is also, if you can remove the movement itself and work on becoming stronger, your efficiency will go up. That's a big thing that they miss. It's like, if you have a strength block within your HYROX block, so you have like, let's say a low body workout, but at the end of the workout there is like a small HYROX simmed like ski erg with wall balls, and say it's like, I don't know, like 3 rounds of 500-meter ski ergs with 25 wall balls. That's going to build your threshold for your HYROX. But the beginning of the workout, you've worked on your squats and your hip thrusts, which is going to help you with your wall balls and your ski ergs
You want to
from
actually
a strength foundation.
you want to have the same model as any other sport. Like, if I have to reflect on SNC for rugby, which is a very, strength dominant sport, you are like in your preseason, the live rugby that you play is maybe 2 matches, like 2 to 4 maybe, in like a 3-month preseason. The whole rest of the other time you're doing conditioning games, you're doing like drills, you're doing squats, you're doing your strength training, and then like the very tip of the iceberg is like match readiness. Whereas it looks like from the outside of the CrossFit world, because I'm not in it, looks like from the outside that a lot more of that, maybe 50%, is like it's actual live rugby, if you will, which I don't think is the most effective way, nor the healthiest way to sort of train for it. But again, I need to go to more workouts to be able to actually see what they're doing.
I also wanted to ask, what were your overall thoughts and how your perspective has changed since the more research you've done? I know you said you were always like kind of in the middle.
So my biggest skepticism is less so about the biomechanical side and injuries and stuff like that, because I think that sort of like comes with most sports. Oftentimes people get hurt. You play fives, you've seen people get hurt. It happens. And I don't like hold much against HYROX for that. I was more so than I am now skeptical about the commercial longevity of the format, because there have been these other things that have like come and gone. However, there are also cases of things that have lasted, like I said at the beginning, Ironman, the marathon format. And my perspective changed because I realized the importance, and I think that this actually is going to position HYROX or a similar kind of fitness race. I think it's going to position it well to last a long time. I underestimated or I underweighted the significance of standardization. I think they've done that very, very well. And it's what CrossFit didn't do particularly well and doesn't do particularly well. And the other fitness races didn't really grasp. Because if you look at what the core components of the marathon being sort of attractive are. It's like it's the same distance, it's the same modality with like pretty much the same equipment. You're wearing the shoes, that's it. Or you can do it barefoot if you want, if you're crazy. And because of that, it's highly gamified. You can measure in a really, really relevant way your performance this year versus next year versus the next year. And because of that, it locks people into this long-term cycle of like, I want to make it better and better and better and better. And that has extreme stickiness. And I think that is what HYROX has done exceptionally well. And what is probably going to set them up to last a long time is it's completely the same. It's predictable. It's measurable. There's and I think that outweighs a lot of other elements with it. I think that is the core thing that makes it a durable type of sport. Is like it's easy to compare. When it comes to these things that don't involve a ball, like endurance sport, that measurability and that uniform nature where you can say, this was my score, this was your score, and they were both in highly controlled environments, indoors, no wind, same distance, same equipment, same whatever, we can have a discussion about that. It's not like I don't know, it's just, and I think there's this natural human desire to want to improve, especially for people who are into this kind of thing. And it's a very easy way to see your progress when it's so uniform. You've got obviously these community elements. I don't see the community part of HYROX being a huge selling point. I think people can get community in lots of other ways. I think what they've also done incredibly well is leverage content. It's absolutely everywhere. They have this whole media package when you sign up where you can buy your photos.
Deals, crazy brand deals.
Brand deals. They've got amazing brand deals with big brands like Puma, Red Bull, Center, etc. Which it really has they've kicked off. They've distributed really well globally, and I think it'll be really make or break over the next 3 to 5 years if they remain even just as relevant as they are now. I think they will last for a long time. I think it'll be the same sort of setup as Ironman and like your major marathons, because we don't really have something like that for the gym world. Although it is still predominantly just kind of cardio focused, it's not like a strength sport. I still think you could consider it something for people who spend a lot of time in the gym. But yeah, my opinion changed in that I just sort of, from the research that I did, I realized how important the standardization component was. Yeah, I mean, I did say that I wasn't as sort of hung up on the biomechanical side of it. To speak to that, I don't think so. I think I agree with you in that I don't think it's a good way to train, nor to maybe organize your training, at least in the current way that it exists and how I see people organizing their training around HYROX. But what I do think is useful, and I think this applies to HYROX, it applies to the marathon, it applies to any event, the fact that there is like this measurable end goal thing, and it's not just social, it is great for helping build habits. Like I think people can, it's a nice additional thing for maybe somebody who running marathons and doing Ironman stuff didn't resonate with. It's another thing that they can go, oh, I'm going to prepare for X, which I think is very useful. I think that helps people a lot.
It's interesting how you said that the community thing didn't stand out for you. That was like the biggest shift for me.
Really?
Is that like the community that they've created is huge. It's crazy that people really get pulled and drawn together, like come from multiple different gyms, and they have this all the same goal that you talk about of like, improving their time from previous years, and like gyms like have meets together. It's like quite crazy that I've seen, which speaks quite a lot to the community side of things, which I didn't expect, but definitely is there.
The research says that there's a big community element, but I guess I didn't feel it as much because I didn't participate so much in the training.
Yeah.
I just did the events.
I think it's just, I just know a lot of people that have experienced going from like a virgin active kind of like training by themselves setting to like a kind of running community into like a HYROX or HYROX with a running community or whatever. It's just, I've just seen how that's kind of changed in a way, where it's it has a similar culty element like CrossFit does.
It definitely has that.
It has that, but I also think that it's slightly more open than CrossFit is. Whereas like a CrossFit box is its CrossFit box, and they are their CrossFit box. Whereas like a HYROX affiliated gym are like open to the idea of like having other gyms come and they have like a HYROX meet or whatever. You know, that's why I wanted to talk. That's why my view on the community kind of changed.
I also think, going back to the sort of using an event to organize your training around, I think the appeal for gyms, particularly boutique operators like ourselves, the appeal for that sort of group of gyms to have HYROX is that it can be a tool to improve your retention. Because if someone's like floating around with their training and they don't necessarily have a sense of direction and they aren't measuring their progress, you can help them really dial in and get focused on a goal and come consistently to training if you say, okay, we're doing like a structured 12-week HYROX build. You know, just from the perspective of getting people to be consistent, I think we are far more consistent when we have something in the calendar that we're working towards. Yes or no, you don't have to, your gym doesn't have to offer that in order for you to train at your gym for that, but it certainly makes it more of an experience if it's like there's a whole cohort at your gym all training for that thing. I think that is quite a compelling side of things for operators. But the initial research question was, is it a fad or not? Is it here to stay? And the pros and cons. My view on the fad or not, I really don't know. But I think beforehand, I was probably 70% sure, 70 to 75% sure that it was a fad. Now I think I'm about 65% sure that it's not a fad, that it's probably going to stick around. Maybe even 70%. So it's actually kind of flipped from that point of view.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I would agree. I think the only problem could be like evolution, right? So like you say stuff like the Ironmans and the running events of the world have stuck, right? So I think HYROX has the potential to do that, but as we say, people get bored with the new evolved kind of take on introducing cardio with weight resistant style stuff. Just if we look at throughout history, right?
As in you think the novelty might wear off. So that's where these next 3 to 5 years are going to will be incredibly important to judge. Because another part of a little bit of insight that I took away from the research was that 70%, I believe it was, may even been more. 70% of participants in 2026 were first timers.
70%?
Yes.
Event.
Total completed participant over the year. So for this 2025-2026 up until now, season, there've been 1.05 million HYROX participants supposedly internationally, or registrations or whatever, and 70% of those
was their first
were
event.
First timers.
Sure.
And even if you look at this graph, like you guys are not, it's going to be hard for you to see it online, but like this is how aggressively it's sort of grown, and this isn't yet stable. So you can't, it's very difficult for us to unequivocally say this thing is here to stay.
We also need to look at the people that have done it 5 years in a row.
True.
That's a good way. That's a good way to actually see if it's gonna last.
Yes.
If we can see that, Seb did it in 2020, Oh, well, let's not use 2020. Let's say 2023 to 2028, for example. He's done it 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028.
Exactly,
and that's going to give us some really good data. Good, but you make a good point. I think we don't have enough info on what the retention actually looks like, because we've seen this massive up spike as it starts to really take off internationally, right?
Exactly.
It's now in the most countries it's ever been. Like I think 55 to 60 countries. And that's just skyrocketed the participants. But now we're going to look at the data from the 3 to 5 years of who's done it consecutive years. We'll see if it really sticks.
Yeah, it's 2025's participants, 70% of them were first timers. So
that's crazy.
It's a huge amount. I mean, but that shows that this is like it's a very new thing, and it's growing very aggressively. So it would be interesting to, like you said, sort of draw that line between. An insight I would love to see is, of the people that complete one, what is the percentage of those that do another one the following year? Or like, because you were saying like we need to look at how many people have done it over a 5-year period. I think just looking at like what their churn data is.
Are they doing like one event and dipping off, or are they doing one event and then they're going to do another one the next year?
Exactly.
And also what we have is that I've had clients and people that I've spoken to in the past, is especially people that travel to and from the Cape Town and live as nomads. They're doing like HYROX workouts here whenever it was, 2-3 months ago. When was it at CTICC? It was like the other day.
That was like a month, not even a month ago.
Yeah, a month ago, whatever.
It was April. We're in April.
April, yeah, this month. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna go to like back to America, and then they're gonna do a HYROX event in their town there, or something like that. That's 3 months later. So you're having people that doing HYROX events multiple times a year. That's gonna also be cool data.
Through Bojan and Sarah, his partner. Yeah. They have done, I think, in the last 6 months, they must have done like one a month.
And she's opened up a HYROX facility.
Yes.
No,
it's honestly, what I must say is I've never experienced this level of passion from people getting into a sport. The only thing, like, I've heard of CrossFit being culty, but I've never experienced that. With HYROX, I've really experienced it. Like, I've seen people go, "Oh my word, are you doing the next HYROX? Oh, I'm doing this HYROX." It's like me with cycling, but times 10. It's like the bug just bites and you are obsessed with it.
Also, the same way that you can become a HYROX coach in a weekend, the same way you can become a CrossFit coach in a weekend. It's very similar. They want the barrier to entry for being able to roll out these workouts to be very low.
Like, obviously HYROX is doing good, but it would be useful if there was a little bit more guidance around like how to fit it in with, I suppose, your existing training split. Although that at this stage, I don't think necessarily benefits them as much as maybe just pushing the growth of the thing. But something that we touched on that I don't want us to lose was about the cutoff time. I think that's a really positive thing that they do.
Yeah, that was a huge point that I picked up when I saw I thought it was 96%, but it's 98% completion rate,
which is huge.
It's just crazy, because that as I was saying, it leaves anyone to come and compete, right? You can take it as chilled as you want, you'll still complete it, right? Or you can push as hard as you are capable, even if you don't make it in what the if you finish an hour ahead or hour before someone, it's still that you completed the workout, which I think is cool.
What I did want to ask you was, did you find any information about injury statistics?
Yeah, this was another big thing. Was the running, was the in the very beginning of the podcast, we spoke about like how a lot of the injuries, if someone was part of like a run club or a run circle and then went into HYROX, the running related injuries were actually picked up doing the HYROX training and then transferred over back into running because of the high stimulus. Talked a lot about stimulus and fatigue and training load and all of this. It would then filter into your running. And that was it was saying 50 to 60% of where the injuries were coming from.
Interesting.
That was a big point.
Yeah, the little point that I had was, and it sort of builds on what you've already said, which is that every HYROX movement is biomechanically defensible in isolation. The risk profile emerges only when you combine them sequentially under sustained above threshold metabolic stress. That is a design feature, not a bug. And it's exactly where the injury question lives. I mean, another interesting angle, though, is to look at, are we looking at it more critically from an injury management point of view because it involves movements that a lot of S&C and strength training specialists like yourself use on a day-to-day basis and teach, as opposed to being some random thing like getting a ball through a hoop? Because you can look at like basketball, you can look at football, rugby, golf, all these different kinds of things, and you can go, wow, that movement pattern is incredibly prone to exposing certain vulnerabilities and causing people to get hurt. But we don't really talk about that because we just accept that it's sport, and people, in the name of trying to achieve the highest level of that sport, they may or may not expose themselves to certain risk factors. Whereas because it's like a weight training thing, well, not even weight training, but it's like they're doing these exercises that we see on a day-to-day basis and may use as coaches, it's now analyzed a lot more critically,
Under a microscope.
Yeah, under a microscope. It's like 5-a-side. Like, I joke about it all the time. I'm like, oh, you an idiot, you're playing fives. Okay, cool. Bring me your ankle in 3 months' time or whatever. But no, like, nobody actually goes and says, oh, 5-a-side, so bad. We need to like.
A lot of people say that.
Maybe,
a lot of people say it's
but it feels
high injury risk.
Don't you get like a different sort of tone than what is usually, I suppose, from like anti-HYROXs?
I think the biggest thing is that if you do something in repetition, like for speed and under fatigue, we have a problem, right? So with like a sport like football or rugby, right? You're not running back and forth in the same line constantly with the rugby ball and the soccer. You're not constantly going back and forth. Whereas like you're doing you lunging with the sandbag, it's the same movement pattern over and over and over until you complete it, that set, while under fatigue, where the injuries come. It's more, you can easily pinpoint and say, oh, it's the you're going to get some patella related problem because you're bashing your knee against the ground every time you do this lunge, and you have to do 50 of them. Whereas in something like football, if you getting a hamstring injury, it's under lots of external load that's coming from all over, whichever position you play, or how much running you've done, or if you've been predisposed to injury in the past. Whereas like we can directly see that this type of movement pattern that these people are doing that aren't that conditioned to do that movement over and over and over again, we can pinpoint that's an injury risk. Do you see?
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas like with football, as the example, is that injuries can be kind of freak in a way. So you're more freak prone, less freak prone in HYROX, more freak prone in soccer, but we can pinpoint why reoccurring injuries happen in HYROX versus like football, for example.
So you're saying that the reason why fitness racing catches more flack from an injury sort of analysis point of view is because most of the injuries in that context are more preventable than injuries in conventional ball sports.
Correct.
Okay, that's an interesting take. That kind of makes sense.
Because it's the movement pattern that you're choosing to do over and over and over and over again, high speeds under fatigue, right? Yes. Whereas in a football match, or like in football training, you wouldn't do like a max effort, I don't know, like broad jumps the entire session, for example, to work on your speed. You're going to do drills and game related. Same with rugby, right? And injuries that occur from that kind of drill training is a contributor to maybe like overtraining, or not recovering properly, or a lack of mobility in a certain area that's caused the musculature to be tighter and then just go. Whereas we can pinpoint in like a HYROX sim or a HYROX event that they've done on their 50th lunge after bashing their knee, something is likely to go wrong.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. And it does align as well with what this article says around the line about that is a design feature, not a bug. Whereas I think the injuries that come through with these other kinds of sports, it's a bug. It's not a design feature. Because what's happening is we're playing an organized sport that has a desired outcome, and we are doing what we can do with ourselves and our team to get to that outcome within the rules through whatever sort of means necessary. And that sometimes does come with an injury because we innovate in a weird way and then like twist and turn, or someone falls on us or whatever. Whereas these kinds of injuries, you can almost just predict them happening.
Exactly.
So it's sort of more justified to critique based on that.
Yeah, I was thinking a good way to think of it is like what how you would do injury prevention training for rugby when you were doing like in your off season, you would do like injury prevention training so you don't get injured during like games and stuff. Same for football, same for basketball, same for all these other say court and field sports. What injury prevention is implemented for HYROX?
Because I'm not in that world, I wouldn't know. But I would just do basic strength training and mobility, I suppose.
But is it prescribed though? That's the thing. Whereas, like, if you're competing in rugby, it's most likely prescribed that injury prevention is built into your strength work, right?
I think it only gets prescribed once the sport matures to a certain degree, because this thing is so new.
So you think it's just not necessary at this point?
It's absolutely necessary, but people aren't thinking about that yet. It's currently like, let's get this thing everywhere. It's not about how do we get people to do it as safely as possible? How do we periodize around a specific HYROX related goal over a 12-month macro cycle and break it into like sustainable little meso and micro cycles that won't end up in me getting like incredible overuse injuries because I'm doing threshold workouts 3 times a week. It's just like the next thing and the hype and the
I think it's just about I think we were looking at from like a business side versus like a physiological side. Is that like the way in which you train to perform is different from like the way that the business is looking, how they want the people to perform. They're looking at from like how many numbers can we get in, how many people can we get at these events.
You also raise another super good point, which is looking at it from the commercial standpoint. What kind of workouts do you want your distributors to be taking people for around your event in their little spaces? You want them to give the because they're all essentially prospects, trial sessions of what they might get on the race day. They need to be able to kind of get an experience for that vibe, that intensity, so why would you do a perfectly structured, specific, boring 1.5 hour wall ball focused and mobility thing? That's not going to get more
and that's
people.
Boring. People
it's
leave.
Boring. You want people to actually get a taste of what the event might be like. So that's why you want to do these sim workouts, because it converts more of your leads into doing the event.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense as to why. But again, it goes back to like, that's not the focus right now. Well, the focus right now is to spread the format more than it is about like, how do we get this adopted in a way that makes people healthy. But again, if we take it and compare it to other sports, I don't think that's the point. The point of basketball, baseball, is not to be healthy. It's to be entertained and to have a spectacle, and it's meant to be fun. It's kind of
So you think the HYROX still needs some time to evolve into its like preventative stage.
Yes.
Whereas those sports are like you competing at the highest level, and it's like a spectacle. But there is in the background what you don't see as a spectator is the athletes are doing their boring strength training and their mobility and they with their physios and all that stuff.
Yes.
You think that HYROX are at the stage where it's just like, let's inject, and then get people in, and then we'll worry about that later.
Yes, I do. And I also think that with most sports, what happens at the highest level trickles down to Gen Pop. And I think at the highest level currently, because the sport is so new, their workouts are probably looking relatively similar to the actual event. And it might, the formats might also still be like in these really intense style workouts. And as a result, people who are watching HYROX influencers and trying to follow their content to understand what to do and are doing similar things. But with time, as the sport matures and people start to understand, okay, if I want to I don't want to just like win this year's Copenhagen HYROX. I want to be competitive for 10 years. How do I do that sustainably? How do I look after myself at the highest level? That will then also start to trickle down to Gen Pop, where people will start to take more care of themselves. I mean, look at the widespread adoption of recovery protocols for endurance sport now. But it's insane. People using these guns and doing compression boots and like that's stuff that only professionals used to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I even knew what an ice bath was until university. Like but because these sports have become so much more professionalized, and those are the things that the best people are doing, and there's so much media coverage around it as well.
And it's fashionable, right? It's
cool and interesting, and more people do it. So I think because the sport is in its infancy, there's still, the most of their capacity is focused on, like you said, like getting it out there. Like it's not necessarily focused on like, how do we do this sustainably. And even so, like in the event, I think it will always have that risk factor. I think the most important thing for people though, or what I would do if I was serious about HYROX, is I would just make sure to really manage the intensity of my workouts.
Yeah, it's just load management. It's huge when you're talking about like lactic thresholds and all that stuff. Like you're gonna hit a brick wall fast if you don't change and get smart with your training.
I mean, all these things said as well, I don't have a huge list of names of people I know that have gotten hurt doing it. Far less than CrossFit, that's for sure.
Yeah, because again, that was a great marketing thing that they did, was they removed all the quote unquote like the less safer movements, like snatching and toes to bar and all of these things, kipping pull-ups. Those are dangerous, can be very dangerous movements when done under fatigue, right? So just dumbing it down to the more basic, simpler movement patterns is far easier and does reduce the injury compared to CrossFit for sure.
The standard, that takes us back to the standardization of, not only are you lowering the barrier to entry by making it easier for people to do, by taking away toe to bar and all the Olympic stuff, but it's also by reducing your selection to 8 exercises. It's ideal for standardization. You keep it relatively short, you've got the same movements, and you can just do it on repeat. So, final roundup. Gideon, what do you say about HYROX? Fad or here to stay? You can give an in-between answer if you want.
Yeah, I think from the more we talk about it, I think I'm leaning towards. I'm interested to see where it will go. I'm interested to see what they're gonna do and how the long-term subscribers to HYROX, where they will be. So I think that's going to be interesting. As we say, it's still too new to know. So I think for the next 3 to 5 years, it's here to stay. And I think after that, we can really see what 5 to 10 years is going to look like.
Yes.
Because I think if you can break past that 10-year barrier, I think you've really made it. Because CrossFit was kind of started like 2007, 2008, 2009, round about there, when it's kind of in its infancy, and they're like kind of did a workout on a farm. It's kind of crazy. And then, through the 2010s, it really just like took off, and then, kind of like reached its peak. So it was around for, it still is around, but, it had a good 10 to 12 year run. So let's really see what these 3 to 5 years bring. But I think it will be around.
And then quick fire, if you can give 3 pros and 3 cons for HYROX.
3 pros: gets people into movement, exercise. I still believe it's good community builder. And 3, I would say that if you aren't doing any form of kind of resistance based training or anything like that, and you only do like a cardio based element because that's the way you like to train, and you're not interested in doing weights, or you find it boring, I think it's a cool way to mix up your training. And it's still, because people are like diehards for just running, and getting them into the gym is very difficult. So if that can be, for me as a strength coach, if HYROX can be your gateway to getting into strength training, I'm here for it.
And what would you say are 3 concerns you have or cons with HYROX?
I think just the whole thing around injury prevention and training load and training stimulus and everything that I talk about there, that the whole training around for the events needs to be dialed in a little bit more. It's definitely not where it needs to be. I think there's smarter ways to implement training for these events. That's the one thing. And also, I know that we said that we were kind of like, in sport, that there's different metrics to understand what's true standardization is. But I think they can work even more to get it, the judging and the form and technique more dialed in. I don't think it's good enough to just say, oh yeah, it's kind of right. Because if you're wanting to roll it out all around the world, and they have it in this controlled environment, as we say, it's indoors, I think they can dial in the refereeing and the judging for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say for fad or here to stay, I agree with you in that it's a bit early to say, but I'm certainly more convinced of the potential of it sticking around after having done some more research. And then 3 cons, I think that number 1, it can be a little bit misleading in terms of people organizing their training. So the sort of regular rational approach is, I have certain exercise format to prep for. I will do more of certain exercise format in preparation for that event. I think that brush applied to HYROX can be a bit risky, especially given how intense it is and the variety of movements under fatigue. And then another con, I'd say that I think the tickets are overpriced. I think that's a big con. End of the day, they're running a business. They have a model. The model needs to work, but there's a little bit of margin that can be played with there. I saw the gross margins. They're 80% supposedly, EBITDA of up to 50%. But also, we don't have to buy tickets. That's another argument. However, I do think it's overpriced. And then I would say that is probably me for cons. So just the 2. Just the sort of, yeah, I think it's misleading and misunderstood in terms of how people approach the training, which becomes an injury risk. And then I think it's overpriced. And then pros, I agree with you. It's a great gateway drug to resistance training if you are completely against it and you're cardio bunny. I think it's an excellent just category sort of grower for fitness in general. It popularizes and gets more media attention for just the fitness world and makes it more trendy and interesting. What they're doing is normalizing movements that we do on a day-to-day basis in the strength environment. So like people watching a farmer's carry, a lunge, using the sled, these kinds of things. Just seeing that and being exposed to that in these kinds of environments, I think it does a lot in a sort of adjacent way to the strength universe, which is good. And it's just a cool way to gamify exercise. It's another way for people to push themselves. It's another sort of outlet for people to try and progress, and I think that's really beneficial. So that's my take.
Interesting. Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
No, I think it was just interesting how my perspectives shifted really on the I really like the idea of people using potentially, I never looked at it this way, but people using HYROX to get into strength training. Always looked at it as its own little baskets, you know. It's like, oh, if people are doing these strength-based movements and they feel, oh, you know, I could actually, I mean, the running's improving my cardio, but you know, if I maybe got stronger in other ways, I could actually do the strength movements better. And there comes in your strength training, right?
You also get this.
That's a big thing for me.
You get this kind of, I suppose, this effect where, because if the research I read is accurate, most of the people doing this event have an exercise background. You know, you're likely to get a handful of people, at least in that environment, that are from a strength training background. And if you're getting people coming from the running world into it that don't have any strength training background, and there's this convergence of the two different worlds, you're going to get some pretty awesome cross-pollination there, where you're going to get some of the lifting people into maybe a bit more cardio. Obviously, they're doing HYROX, so they're already doing that, but other forms of cardio, and then the cardio people into more strength, which I think is just great in general.
I think it's just nice to know that strength training will always be there. Like, it's always going to be the default in a way. That if something doesn't work out, oh, you know, got my strength training.
Yeah, it's also like, I don't know. I think all roads from a longevity perspective lead to strength training. It's and sports, I think sports like HYROX just open the conversation up to that even more. Because the fact that we're discussing, like, it probably was cut out, but the fact that we spoke about things like, you know, you've got a window to do your HYROX, and then that window closes, and then you kind of revert back to whatever you're doing before. I just think in general, we're learning more as a society that in order to have the freedom that you want as an older person, you need to be strong. You need to have muscle mass, and that's becoming so much more widely accepted. Now it's just about, which is what our mission is, getting people to adopt that, like making it an interesting thing to do.
Yeah. How we get that HYROX feeling buzz, but with strength training.
Exactly.
Because it isn't as fun, it isn't as glamorous, and it isn't as, you know, such a spectacle to watch.
Absolutely.
And it takes time, lots of time. But once you get it, you don't lose it. That's a really cool thing.
It's tricky. You almost want to take the format of strength training and sprinkle stuff around it that people are more drawn to. Because I don't think we can get around the fact that the actual act of strength training, it requires a very specific personality to enjoy. It's not for everyone.
No, it's
like, it's not for everyone. But if you can take the strength, it's actually like this. If you give your dog medicine and you put peanut butter around the pill, that's how you're going to get it to eat the medicine. But if you just give it the pill, they're not going to eat it. Not that all the consumers in the world are dogs eating pills here, but you get the idea. It's like, you don't want to eat the pill. You should eat the pill.
Sugarcoat it a little bit.
So let's sugarcoat it. Let's put some nice stuff around it. Let's put community. Let's put socializing.
A nice gym.
Like, there are things to put around the thing to make it more enticing. But the thing itself, you can't get away from. You do need to take that pill. So, and it's a problem I'm very, very stimulated by. I think, because it's amazing to see these things pop up, like see these formats pop up. I'm like, what the hell? Look at that. Look at how that's just like blown up.
Yeah. Crazy.
And strength training has far preceded that. It's been around for much longer.
Yeah. 100+ years.
Yeah. So, but in many ways, you can also argue that CrossFit is derivative. Well, it also is, but HYROX is derivative of strength training to a degree because it's borrowed movements from that modality. But yeah, I think this won't be the last time we discuss HYROX on the pod. Very keen to have another chat.
Good. I mean, it changes month by month,
100%.
Who knows what's going to be in the next 6 months, know where they'll be.
Yeah. But thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time, Gideon.
Yep. Thank you. It's nice to be back for a bit.
If you guys want to reach out to Gideon and chat about anything exercise related, it's Coach Gids on Instagram. Is that correct, right?
That's correct.
Otherwise, you can come to 126 Main Road if you're listening to this in 2026 to see Gideon and chat. And if you want to chat to me, I'm Sprena on Instagram, and I won't tell you where to find me, but you can ask me on Instagram. Maybe I'll let you know. I don't know where I'll be, but thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers. Thank you so much for listening to the show, guys. We love answering specific questions. So if there's anything you want to know, leave a comment or reach out to us directly at Horizen ZA on Instagram, or email us at movement@horizengym.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Seb Prentice, and this is Beyond Physical.